Welcome, home cooks, to Ebony Ivy Thyme. I'm Leona Dooley, and today in the kitchen, we're taking a look at putting together a wonderful pantry for the fall. You know, fall and back to school are just around the corner, and we want to be ready to be able to prepare breakfast, lunch, dinner, and have everything right here in the kitchen that we need. So I was talking to my friend Denise Jordan of This and That, and we decided that we were going to collaborate and we were going to take a look at her kitchen pantry and my kitchen pantry. And we sat down and came up with certain categories that all of us need to have. They're general categories. And then we're going to talk about what we put into those categories, and certainly whatever you can add to those categories or into those categories, please put that down in the description box, because those are the kind of things that all home cooks need to have access to. We are here in the kitchen, and we are trying to make our kitchens more efficient. We want to be the best home cooks that we can possibly be, whether we're a new beginner home cook or whether we're one of the more seasoned. So I invite you to get a cup of coffee, glass of tea, and get a piece of paper, because we have a lot of work to do. So let's get it done. Today, we're going to talk about those 7 basic categories that are essential to a home cook when you're trying to develop your pantry, whether you're a beginner home cook, whether you're somewhere in the middle, or you're a seasoned home cook. You know, as a seasoned home cook, we can always stand just a little bit of tweaking. And, you know, sometimes we just need to come in and reorganize because we have been doing things the same way for a very long time. So today, and I have my notes here because I wanted to make sure that I included everything I would like for you to know and share with you today. So when you finish watching the video today, don't forget, I'm going to have the link down in the bottom for you to go straight to Denise's video so that you can watch what she is doing with these 7 categories. Now, in addition to the 7 categories, we've even got a couple of bonuses that we're going to kick in. So you might as well get comfortable because you're not going to want to miss any of this today. So let's get started. We're going to talk a little bit about the pantry because I want to make sure that you know that your pantry is not just your somewhat of a closet that you have in your kitchen that has all the shelves and that you keep your canned goods, boxed goods, bottled things, and baking items. It's not just that. Your pantry has a lot more areas. So we might need to touch on that just a little bit. Now let's talk about the first category, which is meats. And we're going to take a look at some of the canned meats you might have. Now, I keep on my shelf always salmon. And you know, you always want to have more than one can, because if you have more than one can, then it's just like saying that's gone. So we need at least 2. I also have at least 2 cans of tuna, and typically I try to have anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 cans on the shelf. And you know, the reason for that is because things like tuna and salmon and canned chicken, those are things that have a good shelf life. You're going to probably make sure that you look at your best used date on the bottom, because you're going to want at least 2 years or more of time for it to be able to sit on the shelf. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to use it before the best use date. I'm just saying you want to make sure that your canned goods have a good, long shelf life. The next category we're going to take a look at is the bottled area. Now, with the bottles, and you know I've got a great list here of those items that I have, and I even pulled a few out for you so that you could take a look. But in that bottled area, that's where you're going to find those things like your favorite steak sauce. You're going to have your Lee & Perrins Worcestershire sauce, because these are the kind of things that you can just put a little dash in, and it's going to add that flavor in the background that you're going to want for your dish. And I use Worcestershire sauce a lot. Another big ticket item for me is soy sauce. Soy sauce is something that I think every home cook should have on their shelf. It adds that salty flavor, but it also gives your meats and your dishes a little background. And if you like any type of Asian cooking, then soy sauce is a must. I also usually have on my shelf some oyster sauce. And oyster sauce is one of those things also that if you like Asian cooking, then that's something that you'll want to include. But since sometimes I like doing a little fusion of flavors, I'll throw a little oyster sauce in there to add. Now, those are bottled items, and right now we're just talking about things that we might dash in very quickly. Another thing you might have on your shelf is hoisin sauce. Hoisin is really a type of barbecue sauce, but it has a different flavor to it. It's not like your Sweet Baby Ray's or your Kraft barbecue sauce. It's going to give you a new flavor. And you know, sometimes I actually put some of this in and bring that other whatever brand that I purchase a barbecue sauce, I bring it up to the level that I want and give it the flavor I want. So that's where tasting comes in. We have to taste. Hoisin sauce is a good thing. Now, another bottled item that I will not be caught without is going to be my Classico pasta sauce. It is a bottled item, but let me tell you, throw this in a container and in a pot and with some other good things in there, and you have a soup that is ready to go. Besides, you know, use these things as tools, these bottled items as tools. They are starting points for your recipes. So, Classico roasted garlic for me is a starting sauce, a starting place that I use very often for my dishes. Besides just spaghetti, it's not just a spaghetti sauce. Also, since we're getting close to that season and you may have little people or not so young in your house, I keep a bottle of Jif. And Jiffy chunky peanut butter, I love. You may like smooth, but of course, if you have someone who's sensitive to peanuts, then you might use another type of nut butter that is more agreeable to their system. There's cashew butter. You name it, there's butters out there that you can substitute for peanut butter. But these butters, these nut butters, are invaluable to putting together a quick lunch or a quick snack. So don't be caught without it. And I usually try to get a large bottle because peanut butter and has a great shelf life. And you really have to check with the other nut butters because many of the other nut butters, once they're open, have to be refrigerated. So keep that in mind. Look out for that. When I think of pantries, I actually think of 4 different areas. The first area is the most obvious, and that part that we call the pantry. That's here. That has all our canned goods, all those things that we use every day, that we run in there, we take out, and we put them wherever or use them for whatever that's going to be. The second part of the pantry, pantry number 2, is your refrigerator. And certainly that's where you have lots of your items that you're using, and those things that need to stay cold are in your refrigerator. The other part is your freezer, and please forgive because I'm showing it to you, but it is not perfectly organized today, but we'll do that. But anyway, you have your freezer. So there's 3 of the pantries. Now, depending upon whether or not you're a beginner home cook or somewhere in the middle, or you may even be a more seasoned home cook, you may have an additional pantry that is out in your garage. And I know a lot of us do that, or maybe down in your basement, or but that's those areas that you have that have an extra refrigerator or an extra freezer, and it may be a chest freezer. Here I have an extra refrigerator with a freezer. So that's my pantry number 4, because I know that's a place that I can store items that I need. So 4 pantries are here. So we have to utilize all of those and know what we have and use what we have. Now let's talk about the first category, which is meats. And we're going to take a look at some of the canned meats you might have. Now, I keep on my shelf always salmon. And you know, you always want to have more than 1 can, because if you have more than 1 can, then it's just like saying that's gone. So we need at least 2. I also have at least 2 cans of tuna, and typically I try to have anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 cans on the shelf. And you know, the reason for that is because things like tuna and salmon and canned chicken, those are things that have a good shelf life. You're going to probably make sure that you look at your best used date on the bottom, because you're going to want at least 2 years or more of time for it to be able to sit on the shelf. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to use it before the best used date. I'm just saying you want to make sure that your canned goods have a good, long shelf life. The first category when I'm thinking about my pantry is that I want that pantry to have something in it that I know I can put a quick meal together with. And so I start with my protein. So we're going to start with the category of meats. Now, I always have tuna, I always have salmon, and I always have chicken. The next category we're going to take a look at is the bottled area. Now, with the bottles, and you know I've got a great list here of those items that I have, and I even pulled a few out for you so that you could take a look. But in that bottled area, that's where you're going to find those things like your favorite steak sauce. You're going to have your Lee & Perrins Worcestershire sauce, because these are the kind of things that you can just put a little dash in, and it's going to add that flavor in the background that you're going to want for your dish. And I use Worcestershire sauce a lot. Another big ticket item for me is soy sauce. Soy sauce is something that I think every home cook should have on their shelf. It adds that salty flavor, but it also gives your meats and your dishes a little background. And if you like any type of Asian cooking, then soy sauce is a must. I also usually have on my shelf some oyster sauce. And oyster sauce is one of those things also that if you like Asian cooking, then that's something that you'll want to include. But since sometimes I like doing a little fusion of flavors, I'll throw a little oyster sauce in there to add. Now, those are bottled items, and right now we're just talking about things that we might dash in very quickly. Another thing you might have on your shelf is hoisin sauce. Hoisin is really a type of barbecue sauce, but it has a different flavor to it. It's not like your Sweet Baby Ray's or your Kraft barbecue sauce. It's going to give you a new flavor. And you know, sometimes I actually put some of this in and bring that other whatever brand that I purchase a barbecue sauce, I bring it up to the level that I want and give it the flavor I want. So that's where tasting comes in. We have to taste. Hoisin sauce is a good thing. Now, another bottled item that I will not be caught without is going to be my Classico pasta sauce. It is a bottled item, but let me tell you, throw this in a container and in a pot and with some other good things in there, and you have a soup that is ready to go. Besides, you know, use these things as tools, these bottled items as tools. They are starting points for your recipes. So, Classico roasted garlic for me is a starting sauce, a starting place that I use very often for my dishes. Besides just spaghetti, it's not just a spaghetti sauce. Also, since we're getting close to that season, and you may have little people or not so young in your house, I keep a bottle of Jif. And Jiffy chunky peanut butter, I love. You may like smooth, but of course, if you have someone who's sensitive to peanuts, then you might use another type of nut butter that is more agreeable to their system. There's cashew butter. You name it, there's butters out there that you can substitute for peanut butter. But these butters, these nut butters, are invaluable to putting together a quick lunch or a quick snack. So don't be caught without it. And I usually try to get a large bottle because peanut butter and has a great shelf life. And you really have to check with the other nut butters because many of the other nut butters, once they're open, have to be refrigerated. So keep that in mind. Look out for that. The next category is that of oils, and certainly we use cooking oils all the time. And today and this week, I'm working with an extra virgin olive oil. And so I'm using this. I know that when I use extra virgin olive oil that I have to be cautious with the heat and do not turn your fire up too high because it can spoil the nutritional value of your olive oil. But I also keep on hand you can use either canola or corn oil, or you may opt for sunflower oil or grapeseed oil, which is my real preference. But you know, grapeseed has not been easy to find lately. And so I've had to come back to my original, which is olive oil. But oils are necessary. And certainly don't forget that if you cook bacon, strain and save the oil, because that's oil from your meat that is going to add some extra flavor to whatever it is that you're preparing for dinner. So oils are another one of those categories. And like I said, my three favorites are grapeseed oil, EVOO, and canola oil. And typically, I have at least one or two bottles of these oils all the time. Whew. Keeping your pantry can really be a chore. We've talked about our meat, our fish, and our poultry, our pork, under the heading of proteins. We've talked about those bottled items that we would like to keep on our shelf and have them available for cooking. We've also looked at oils and canned goods that are necessary for the home cook. And now we want to think about some of those items that we would use for baking that are definitely a necessary item. Now, that's where you're going to come in with your all-purpose flour. You're going to bring in your sugar. You might even, if you're a biscuit maker, you can opt to use your all-purpose flour, or you can even use your self-rising flour, or even your bread flour, if that's the case. So you've got choices in the area of flours. You have granulated sugar. We have brown sugar. We have also confectioner sugar, and there is a difference, so you need to make sure that you read your recipes carefully, new cooks, so that you know which one that you're going to need to use. Typically, your confectioner sugar is going to be used for icings or for some type of frosting that you're going to put on something that you're going to bake with. And your granulated sugar is your all-purpose sugar. Now, if you like a little bit of depth of flavor, you might want to divide that measurement of sugar depending upon what you're preparing, particularly something like sweet potatoes, or depending upon a cake that you might be making. You might even be brave enough to go so far as to substitute some of that regular granulated sugar for half granulated, half brown sugar. It's going to add an additional depth of flavor. Now, in addition to that, we're going to take a look at we use our sugars for our coffee or tea, whatever it may be. So your sugar sweetener of choice is going to be in this category as well. Also, in the baking category, we're going to need the other category, which is going to be that of herbs and spices. Now, something that I haven't mentioned that you might want to think about, some of the things, whether it's protein, whether it's a vegetable that you're going to be using, whether it's an herb or a spice that you're going to be using, you can find those items dried or dehydrated, as well as be able to find them fresh. And so you can certainly find them canned or bottled. And so let's take a look at some of those items that you might be able to use. And then we're going to get into some of those things that are boxed. And typically your boxed items are not going to have as long of a shelf life, but they do have quite a substantial shelf life. So let's take a look at that. Now, first I'm giving you some of the items that you might use for some of your fall baking. And let me take that out because that's certainly not one of those things. First of all, you're going to need fresh baking powder. If your baking powder has been sitting on your shelf since Christmas, then it is time to eliminate it, get a fresh can. And because I do a lot of baking, my can is a little larger than usual, but I typically try to get the one, let's see, this one is 8.1 ounce. If you can find a 4.5 ounce can, that's perfect, because you want this to be fresh when you open it to do your baking. But the fall flavors are going to include your nutmegs, your cinnamon. I like apple pie spice. You might even find pumpkin spice. I haven't picked mine up yet for this season, but you know, these types of flavors are going to be those things that we're going to use them through that season. I'm going to use them as much as I can and I get the smallest can that I can because I want to use it up, and when the new season comes, I would like to have it fresh. I also keep pure vanilla extract always on hand, and this Watkins is just one of those brands that you might see on your grocery shelf or even in your pantry. But I like Watkins, and I am a fan of it. So you notice I brought over my powdered sugar, and like I said, I use a store brand confectioner sugar. I keep my brown sugar either in a jar or some type of sealed container so that it will stay fresh. And I can say that when I keep it in my jar, it does not get hard. In the category of our herbs and spices, remember I talked about the fact that sometimes you may be fortunate enough to have dry herbs or dry spices. I have basil, and I also have parsley that is dried as well because my daughter grows both, and we usually dry it. And so I keep a large can of black pepper because I use a lot of it. I also keep chicken bouillon, and I purposely brought out both forms. Now, my favorite is better than bouillon, and it comes in this little jar. Once you open it, it must be refrigerated. If you want something that you can keep on your shelf, then Knorr's chicken bouillon will work quite nicely. But they are always great to have available in your pantries. Also, paprika is important to the home cook. You would not believe how many times you will go and you will look at a recipe and find that paprika is one of those items that's called for. And of course, if you put together any type of salad, like a potato salad or a macaroni salad, oh, you can't let that salad leave your house without a little bit of paprika on top. I brought a couple of other things over as well. One being salt. Salt is something every home cook needs to have in their pantry ready to go. You do not want to have a recipe that you're going to prepare and you start to go down that recipe list only to find the one thing that you're missing is salt. Because if salt, whether it's bread, whether it's biscuits, whether it's chicken, whether it's steak, whether it's a soup, salt is needed. Now, also, I like celery seed, and I purchased celery seed rather than celery salt. Now, I like to sprinkle celery seed over my tossed salad, and particularly if I'm serving it with an Italian dressing, sprinkle a little bit of celery seed on top, and you will find that it will just add umami to that salad. So for those of us who are really into our salads, try that celery seed out because it's really going to give a very good taste. Our next category is that of canned goods, and canned goods is probably going to be your largest category when you're thinking about putting a grocery list together, or when you're looking into your pantry. You always want to make sure that the canned goods section is has a lot of diversity, and that it has all of those items that you're going to go to for your recipes. So I'm going to start here with fruits. And I try to keep canned goods, I'll say canned fruits, all the time, because I can put a salad together, I can put a cake together. There are just so many things, or pies even, but there are just so many things that we can do with our canned fruit. So I have apple pie filling that's here. I've got pumpkin puree that I can use for some of those delicious fall dishes that we might have. I also have crushed pineapple, and I use my crushed pineapple for drinks as well as for baking items and for salads. Pineapple goes well into salads. I keep mandarin oranges because I use it a lot during the fall because of the fact that I have a cranberry combination that I like with my whole cranberries, and I like for it to include some mandarin oranges. Mandarin oranges also make a delicious salad. So we're going to be taking a look at that as well. So those are just some of the fruit items. Get the fruits that your folks like, that your family likes. Next, you'll see I've got my Campbell's lineup. So I'm keeping those things. Sure, I can make cream of celery, cream of mushroom, cream of chicken on my own. But sometimes we're in a hurry. Sometimes we just need to get the job done. So because of that, very often I keep canned items just in case, because we're not always the one who's doing the cooking. So it may be that we may give this recipe to someone in our family. It could be one of our teenagers, and say, okay, here's the recipe. Can you prepare this? Because it may be that you're not feeling well. And so they can step in for you because you have a well-stocked pantry. And so we're going to take care of that and take a look at that. Next, I have chili on tap for the fall. And we certainly want to make sure that we have plenty of tomato products for our chili. And these just happen to be the chili ready tomatoes, which are very, very good and very tasty. So we've got those. We also have the mixed beans, the chili with mixed chili beans. And I like that particular mixture because it gives your chili a lot of color. Now, usually when we think about canned goods, we're thinking about, the green vegetables and all those good things. But let's not forget, we need some type of spray, vegetable oil spray for our pans when we're baking, and sometimes even when we're cooking. We just need a quick spray and then we're ready to go. Now, I have peas, and I try to keep at least 2 to 3 to 4 cans of peas. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and buy 4 cans of peas in one shop. That just doesn't make sense. You may pick up a couple of cans here, a couple of cans there. Check your best use date, but make sure that they're on your shelf. I do the same thing with my green beans. It just happens that this time I ordered the French style green beans because I was thinking of doing something special with the French style green beans. I call them verts, and verts are delicious. And I have a delicious little green bean salad that I can make from this can of green beans. I also keep corn on the shelf. Now, today I have about 6 cans of whole kernel corn because it just happened that I caught it on sale. But I also typically pick up cream style corn as well. Now, some of you may say, well, I can fix my own cream style corn. Sure, of course we can. But when we're in a hurry, we're coming home from work, and we want that meal ready fairly quickly, then we have to think, what's the shortcut to this? that I can use and still have a delicious dish, no one will care at that point whether or not you've used your shortcut or whether you've done it from scratch. So keep a few cans of your whole kernel corn and also keep a few cans of the cream style corn. I don't think there's a day that you walk into my kitchen, go into my regular pantry, that you will not see a can of Crisco. And I can think back to my mom because that was the way her pantry ran. She always had a can of Crisco. Now, you know, back in the day, cooks fried everything. And I may not fry everything, but this Crisco, this can, is dedicated to biscuits because it's of my opinion that I get a better biscuit when I use my Crisco. And you can certainly choose whether you want the butter flavor, or if you opt to use butter, that's fine. But I don't have to do any breaking up of the butter. I can just put the Crisco in that batter and in the flour and bring those biscuits together in less than 5 minutes. So when you can do that, you won the Crisco. Now, I sat the cream of chicken off to itself, mainly because of the fact that it just happened to be a different, it wasn't a Campbell's, so I put it by itself. But you know what? I have tested the store brand of cream of chicken, cream of mushroom, cream of celery, and I've tested the Campbell's, and all of them are just about the same. And so you have to make that decision based on your particular budget as to whether or not you want to use a store brand or whether or not you want the name brand. And that choice is up to you. Now, I also have evaporated milk. Evaporated milk is wonderful to have on the shelf. And particularly if you have a young child who is using a bottle, you may want to always have evaporated milk on your shelf. So just in case there's an emergency and you're not able to get to the grocery for whatever reason it may be, you are able to put milk together for your children, for your baby, so that your baby will always have what they need. Let's talk about those things that are typically boxed. I have a list. I talk about oatmeal, cereal, Jiffy cornbread mix, or Martha White, whichever it is. And of course, if you are the connoisseur of making your own cornbread, you can certainly do that. Spaghetti, your elbow macaroni, your linguine, your penne, whatever your pasta might be, may come in a box. These are the items that I usually keep on the shelf. I also keep boxed chicken broth on my shelf. Now, you all know I make my own every week, but if we're in a situation where I don't have an opportunity to make the chicken broth, then I've got it on my shelf and it's there for us to be able to use. And actually, this boxed chicken broth goes very quickly because the big guy loves his chicken broth. When it's cold, when fall comes, it is nothing to see him walking around the house with a cup full of hot chicken broth. And it's got protein, so that's a good thing. I typically pull my boxed items, things like oatmeal, out of its container, and I put it into my own container. So here I have oatmeal. I also have some noodles that I may use for a noodle soup. And so those are the types of things that we use that I use that are boxed, and I keep them on my shelf. Don't forget things like crackers in a box. Your spaghetti, store it in a box where it's going to be safe and you can control how much you have or how little you have, and in a nice container you can see exactly what you need. Now, let me tell you, I got so excited that I forgot that one of our categories was those grains and those pastas, your beans and nuts. And hold on a second, because I have some of those already in my pantry. Now, here's our nuts. I keep them in a nice sealed container so that they stay nice and fresh. I also have a container for my rice. This just happens to be the brown rice container, but I have another one just like it for the white rice, so that I have both selections depending upon what it is that I'm going to cook that night. So rice is one of those options under those grains and pastas and beans and nuts. And you know what? When I go to the grocery store, I'm going to have to look for some dried beans. Now, I have canned beans, but I don't have any dried beans. So that's one of the things I need to stop right now and put on my grocery list. We've talked about our protein. We've done our bottled category, our canned category, our oils, our baking, our herbs and spices, our boxed. We've done our grains, pasta, that's all in one category, it's a big one. Grains and pasta, beans and nuts. We've done that category as well. Now, something that you aren't thinking about and probably have not thought about when you're thinking about the pantry is that we need to include fruits and veggies. Because remember, right here, I've got 3 parts of my pantry, and one of those parts is the refrigerator, and the freezer. Well, the main part is the refrigerator, and certainly I can use my freezer as well to do a little bit of freezing, like I did with those strawberries that we made the strawberry preserves with. Now, but just to name a few of the fruits that I typically have, some of these are fruits and vegetables. And especially this month in August is a great time to be able to pick these up, to find a way you can dehydrate them, you can freeze them, and you can put them in various forms so that you can use them for your cooking. For instance, I think we might put together an autumn apple chicken recipe. That sounds pretty good. Apples and chicken. And you know, usually I do pork and apples, but I'm thinking we need something with chicken. So we might have to put that together before we leave today. You might have to work on that, because that sounds really good. Okay, in addition to that, I digressed. We want to have our cucumbers because, let's face it, we are at the prime time where the harvest is coming in. We want our cucumbers, we want our celery, green peppers, onions, tomatoes, the carrots, the lettuces, cabbage, strawberries, mushrooms. The blueberries are beautiful, the grapes, the grapefruit, the lemons, and limes even. Avocado would be one of those things that we could throw into this category that we can use fresh, cut it up, put it into a salad. We can make a fruit salad. We can make a savory salad, or we can do a combination of the two. And I'm thinking we might have to use some of this fruit and put a very nice refrigerated salad together. So let's see what we can do today. I think we have enough time to get that done as well. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 categories covered. So that means that at this point, we are into the bonus. Because I diced the potatoes up small, they're going to cook very quickly. Like I said, we could have used cumin, some type of cumin, either red cumin or yellow cumin, whichever your heat factor can and spice factor can take. But I stayed with my own selection of flavors just because I knew what the family liked. So we're going to cover this up, and this is ready. So these flavors are going to have a chance to go through the dish, and they are going to be perfect by dinner time. My chicken is done. Everything is done.
I didn't get to come back in and do any more chit chat, but that's okay. But I did want to show you my new apron that I got, that one of my friends was nice enough to send to me, and so I'm going to show that to you and give you a little model at the end. A home cook always needs pretty aprons because it helps to keep our clothes nice and clean.
All right, dairy. Let me run it down to you. I know you've got them. You need eggs, butter, milk, whatever variety you like, yogurt, cream cheese, sharp cheese, a variety of cheeses, buttermilk, cream. All of those things are going to come into your dairy category. And you know, some of these things you may be able to keep in your refrigerator for an extended period, and some of those things you're going to have to buy fresh. So when you think about your capsule, your grocery capsule, for me, dairy is one of those things that is almost always underneath of the protein, because I always have something in the dairy category that I need to pick up. And to be honest with you, it's usually eggs and milk. Who would think that? All right, next, our freezers. Our freezers are so valuable. It is the place where you can stock. You should be able to have in your freezer your vegetables that you like in the perfect size bag for whatever it is that night at dinner. I typically, since it's just two of us, I buy smaller bags of green beans, mixed vegetables, whatever it might be that I'm going to put in, broccoli, cauliflower, whatever it is that I'm going to put into the freezer. Those bags are going to be small because I want to use it then, and put it away. Now, I like the little steamers because I can throw it into the microwave and voila, in a matter of minutes, it's done and ready to go. I also keep my butter in the freezer. And when I know I'm going to be baking, then I'll take it out the night before, let it sit out all night. And by the time I get ready to bake, then the butter is nice and soft and perfect for whatever it is that I want. I also keep in my freezer additional corn, green beans. I keep lemon juice and ice cream. I keep fruit. I freeze my blueberries. I freeze my cut apples. I will slice up a bunch of apples, season them, peel and slice them, put my cinnamon and sugar and nutmeg and all those good things on the apples, put them in the freezer with just a little bit of cornstarch, and guess what you've got? A gallon-sized bag full of apple pie ready to go. So all you have to do is have a crust, put it in there, cover it, and it's ready to go. Your apple pie is almost done. That's going to be good. Now, so those are just some of the freezer items. You may have popsicles, and some of us even keep bottles of water in our freezer, soft drinks in our freezer. It may be Gatorade you've got in your freezer. Always have popsicles, because you never know when someone in your household may run a temperature, they're not able to eat. Give them a popsicle, because children always love popsicles. And even when their tummies aren't feeling well, they manage to get down a popsicle. So keep that popsicle handy year round. Now let's talk about some of those miscellaneous items. This is my bonus. When you're setting up your pantry, I even have a corner where I have additional washing powder. That's for my dishwasher. I also have extra bottles of Dawn to use when I'm actually hand washing dishes or I'm cleaning. I keep vinegar, so that white vinegar, so I can use that as a part of cleaning as well. I keep paper plates just in case there may be a power outage and I don't want to run the dishwasher. I keep plastic forks and knives and spoons just in case. I even keep plastic cups because you never know when you might have a crowd and you want to use those items. I also keep Clorox, a couple of extra bottles of Clorox. And I usually buy a medium, at least a couple of small bottles of Clorox that I can keep here in the kitchen. And my large bottle of Clorox is in the laundry room. But the small ones are easy for me to get to and to use very quickly here in the kitchen. This is also a good place to think about as you're thinking about your pantry. A couple of those items that you may not think about is going to be your paper towel. You may be cutting back on paper towel usage. And I showed you several weeks ago that I'm using a reusable paper towel, and that I purchased through Amazon, and I'll link that down below. They are wonderful. And it was funny, I had guests here at the house, and she said, "What is that?" And I said, "This is my reusable paper towel." And so I gave her one so she could take it back on the plane, and gave my daughter one so she could take it back to her house. But that's a good way to be able to, for those younger home cooks, or even the seasoned home cook, we have to share what we find, what we know. And certainly in today, we want to try to be as user-friendly with our environment as we possibly can. And if we do it one household at a time, we can make a difference. I also include, not so much, it's not stored really in my pantry, but it is certainly a part of this list. And that is the TP, the toilet paper. You have to make sure you have toilet paper. And so that's one of those things that's in that miscellaneous category that you always want, as well as any other washing clothes items that you need, washing your kitchen towels. You know the types of products that you'd like to use that get your towels clean. So those are some of the things that are going to go into your miscellaneous area. So when you put your 7 categories, and I'm going to list those 7 categories for you later, you will have those available to be able to use. So I'll show you mine, and you show me yours later. Now let's take a look at our categories. You have the meat, fish, poultry, which are our proteins, our bottled categories, our grain, pasta, beans, nuts category. Sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Oils, our dairy, our baking, our freezer, our herbs and spices, our fruits and veggies, and our box products. And let's never, never, never leave out those miscellaneous items that we always have, that are like our Cascade dishwashing tablets. We need those, and they come under the miscellaneous items. Or it may be your spray away that you need to clean your glass. Those are miscellaneous items that you want to have on hand. Now, I'm going to show you my list, and you are certainly welcome and free, and I encourage you to take a look at mine and see how ours compares, because those of us who are more seasoned home cooks certainly have a lot of items that are probably the same. And for those of us who are new to home cooking, then you may need a starting point just to get an idea as to what should be under each of these categories. And I'm not saying that I have the perfect list. And when you finish watching this video, you're certainly going to want to go over to Denise's channel, This and That with Denise, and take a look at her categories. We have the same categories, but we might have some different items. And in fact, I'm pretty sure we will. Because when you're running different households, our families have different tastes and likes. So, we're going to have a happy fall. We're going to enjoy every moment in our kitchens. Now, I hope you have enjoyed being in the kitchen with me today. And if you have, I hope you've learned a lot of things, that you've looked at your list, you've checked it twice. And so you have a well-planned process that you're going to be using to get your pantry the way you want it for fall. Now that you've listened to me and we've shared information, I am asking that you'll hop on over to This and That with Denise Jordan, because you're going to want to see what she's going to talk about, because we tried to make sure that we did not have the same items. And you're going to find that there are going to be some things that she has over there. And I may have some of those items on my list, but I'm not going to talk about those. So she's going to talk about them on her channel over at This and That. I have put her link down below for both This and That as well as the Apron Diva, because we want to make sure that not only is our kitchen efficient, but we want to make sure that we look nice when we're in the kitchen. So, keeping our clothes clean, keeping our family well fed, and certainly we want to love on them every day. So, without further ado, have a blessed and wonderful time this week in your kitchen.